SMT Nation, we back. Nation, we've got news coming out from T-Mobile here. This subject matter, this topic, has been a topic of discussion for 3 years. The T-Mobile and Sprint merger had immense repercussions throughout the industry, throughout the country. We went from 4 carriers to 3, right, in consolidation. Dish has yet to really produce anything viable, right, as the 4th carrier to replace Sprint. And we remember, during the whole time of lobbying for the deal, the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, famously John Legere, the CEO at the time, and Mike Sievert and Marcelo Clore and all the people that were the CEOs of the companies and the executives, basically said that this merger was going to result in a better company. There were going to be jobs positive from day one and all those things. Well, we got the numbers, we've got some insights, and T-Mobile is denying that they are job negative. Okay, so we're going to talk these numbers, see how T-Mobile is going to get away with this, and how these numbers work. I will link this article for you. It will be in the description. Also in the description is the Real SMT Buy Me a Coffee link. If you want to support your creators directly, that's one way you could do it. Also, if you're looking for a great deal on wireless service, get it from our partner, mmWave. Use the partner link that's in the description. You'll save money, and you'll be supporting the channel in the process. Okay, so the situation with the T-Mobile and Sprint merger with respect to American jobs is that basically the company has laid off somewhere around 10,000 workers over the course of the last 3 years. They've done it in increments. They've done it on a few different occasions. We saw all types of different individuals recently with respect to retail. We've seen it with respect to the engineering team after the Sprint integration was completed. And, we've seen some consolidation within departments. We've, seen customer care kind of change and more jobs going overseas. Very typical corporate stuff. Okay, and T-Mobile's not specific. They're not the only company in the industry. Verizon has been laying people off. AT&T historically has always laid tens of thousands of people off. It's annual if you think about it. So it's not unusual for a company to do this, but the issue is that T-Mobile volunteered that disclosure. They said we're going to be job positive. So it's really on them. They put the target on themselves. In order to get the merger to go through, they felt compelled to make that promise. Okay, so prior to the T-Mobile and Sprint merger, there was a total of 80,000 people that worked at the combined company. Right, so T-Mobile Sprint merger happens, 80,000 people were employed. Today, or I should say at the end of last year, at the last time there was the, is it the FTC filing that they do annually? It's down to 71,000, so we're net negative, minus 9,000. Or minus 10,000, however that works out on the exact number. T-Mobile also said that it's actually hiring, looking to fulfill 2,000 open positions across the company, but that would still put them as minus 7 or 8,000, because the company separately had 80,000 employees collectively, at the closing of the merger. So the quote from T-Mobile to all these written articles is, quote, "We've upheld our jobs commitment. Before we merged with Sprint, we said we'd have more employees as a combined company than the 2 standalone companies would have had on their own without the merger, and we have done just that." So how do they pull this off? How do they actually justify this, prove this? I think what it really boils down to, folks, is the fact that Sprint was a dying, flailing company. Their ownership was not reinvesting into the network. Sprint's network was regional at best. It was really problematic in some places non-existent, other places troubled, lack of reinvestment across the country. They had industry low capex for a number of years, and just the operations, like post Dan Hesse, who was the CEO before Marcelo Clore, there was nothing there. There was no fire, there was no spark. The customers, for the most part across a majority of the country, were not responding to Sprint's offers. Although Sprint was selling service very, very cheaply, it cut into their ARPU. The only way they could sell their service was to offer it at a much lower price than even T-Mobile, who at the time was also an insufficient network as well. Right? So that's how things were. Verizon had the massive, huge network, the network excellence. People would take Verizon. So Verizon charged, more premium pricing because of it. AT&T was a little bit better than T-Mobile and Sprint, obviously, so they were in a better position. But they were, a competitor at the very least, right? So all these things coming into play, Sprint had to sell their service for dirt cheap. There was going to come a point, folks, where Sprint was basically just giving away the service. There were all types of free lines, all types of premium add-ons. It was good for the consumer. It was good for the customer. But for company operations, it made no business sense. They could not continue to operate at losses, which they were in some instances. There were some markets where Sprint thrived, where the network was well invested and engineered, but it was in a minority of places. And that's where I think the job cuts come into play. We already saw thousands of jobs reduced and eliminated at Sprint before the merger, and it was going to continue. Sprint was going to probably lose thousands of jobs or cut thousands of jobs, systematically until they got a merger. That was the end game. The end game was, SoftBank, the owner wanted out. Masayoshi-san, for those of you that follow, investing in SoftBank, and it was not going to be pretty. They were going to continue to lose jobs at Sprint. So that's where I think T-Mobile comes at this, is they're like, look, that was a failing company. We were an ascending company. We stepped up, we merged. That's how we made it job positive. And if you think about it, they, in the long scheme of things, the long game, in 3 years, Sprint would have probably cut their workforce by 25 to 30%. They probably would have reduced their workforce at least 10% annually, if not 15%, if they were unable to compete. And they weren't. They weren't reinvesting into the network. They weren't able to compete. The marketplace wasn't responding, and it was tough waters for them. All right, so I think that's where T-Mobile was coming at this. We came in, a lot of those employees still working for us. We're in a better position today. So is the American worker. We're jobs positive. So maybe that's how they structure. I don't know. What do you guys think? How does T-Mobile pull this off? How do they say that we are jobs positive and we've upheld our end of the deal after they've laid off somewhere around 10,000 people since the merger? How do you think they're pulling this off? How do you think they're framing it? Love to hear what you guys have to say on this. You all the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard.